Hello, I'm Diego Sanchez. I'm very happy to participate in this Congress on traditional Hellenic or Greek medicine, from which I have benefited a lot. I am a practitioner of Zen Shiatsu and Quantum Shiatsu. It's a Japanese bodywork therapy based in the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, but I have the good fortune of having worked with some teachers that really expanded those traditional concepts into the energetics of touch, the energetics of using the points of acupressure or acupuncture, and understanding the body as a whole, and the unification of many different streams of knowledge. I have also trained with a Russian shaman with whom I practiced and learned the perception of the chakras, and how the chakras work. And with my teacher, Pauline Sasaki, Quantum Shiatsu teacher, she put together all the information that was relevant to the chakras, the meridians, and other energetic systems into a cohesive and organized way of working, which I've been using for about 20 years. I've been practicing for about 30 years, but the last years with my teachers were very fruitful in that regard of the moving from the body into the energetics. And doing so, most recently even, it's about probably 5-6 years, that I came across the concept of the Greek mythology archetypes through my therapist, a Gestalt therapist. Her name is Rosana Perata, here in Uruguay, that she took on the information from Jean Shinora Bolen, Jungian therapist, that wrote a couple of books on the goddess in each woman and the god of each man. When I learned about my own archetypes, I realized how useful they can become in therapy. So I learned as much as I could in from the Jungian side of the archetypes of the Greek mythology, and I found some amazing coincidences between Chinese medicine, Zen Shiatsu, chakra work, and the Greek archetypes. Now, let me go into a few aspects. The first thing is that I work mostly with the feminine archetypes of the Greek mythology, because most of my clients are women, the same as most of the alternative therapies clients are women too. And although I do have many in my practice, the overwhelming majority of people that seem to be interested in these subjects are women. And most of the clients that I found from the perspective of the Greek mythology are Athenas, Artemises, some Aphrodites, not many, and a lot of Persephones, a few Heras, and a few Demeters as well. But Athena and Artemis are the top two, women that are successful, that have more masculine traits, are more independent, they're not dependent on men to succeed, and they do reach a more open view of the world. They're more traveled, they have better jobs, maybe they're more successful in their careers, and they do understand what is the price they have to pay for leaning so heavily on one or two qualities of their main archetype. And of course, this is the balance between the personal life and the professional life. Artemis and Athena have a very, very good way of dealing with matters of the world, with material stuff, with professional stuff. And the price they have to pay is in their relationships, like maybe they do not find men or other couples that are sufficiently strong for them, so they tend to somehow have a lack of appreciation or a lack of respect for men, because they see themselves as strong as men are, and sometimes even stronger. And it's difficult to find a really, really strong man, say a Zeus, that would really overwhelm their own power. So, and they tend to find somewhat weaker men that will be a little bit more feminine themselves, and maybe they stay more at home and they go in and out and they travel and they do their thing out in the world. The other main archetype that I see that shows up in my practice quite a bit is Aphrodite and Persephone. But both of these archetypes, which are no more in vogue these days, like Athena and Artemis are very well talked about. There's the liberation of women, the equality of pay, of rights, more presence in the business world is very much appreciated today. But Hestias, for example, just being the wife is not appreciated as it used to be. Demeter just being the mother is somehow like diminished, and it's not so much valued as it was some years ago or some decades ago. And the same Aphrodite and Persephone. Now, Persephone in particular, it's a role or an archetype that I see often as a wound. What do I mean by a wound? Some people are defined by their natural archetype. And of course, we have many different archetypes that coexist at the same time. But when there's one of the archetypes that came naturally at a particular time of life and it could not be expressed and it had to be suppressed or repressed, then the usual other archetype that especially women tend to rely on is Athena and Artemis, because they're more protective, they're stronger, they're the ones that you can go out in the world with and feel empowered. Persephone, that needs help from somebody stronger in order to help her reach the goals that she needs and get her needs resolved, is not so. It's a much more vulnerable archetype, and it usually happens that when a child has not been protected, if a child has been neglected, or there was no room in a family for one of the members to just be a child, they tend to become very responsible at a very young age. And then the other archetype, like for example Athena and Artemis, will take over the Persephone archetype and hide it in order not to feel vulnerable. The same happens with Aphrodite, maybe not so much as a child, but sometimes in adolescence, when a woman starts to flourish and sexuality is awakened, and that is seen as a threat by the family or the people around her, then either she herself represses it, or the environment will force her to suppress that particular archetype and take on another archetype. Sometimes it could be Demeter, because she might become pregnant and has to take on the role of the mother. Or Hera, Hera, she will have to maybe get married with somebody and play the role of the wife of, or get together with somebody and move on in life, start working and defending herself, getting on her own feet. But the original archetype will get suppressed, and it will tend to show up later on in life. This is really interesting and useful in order to understand that when we do an energetic reading of an archetype, because it's not just a matter of personality. In my case, what I observe is the energetics of each archetype. Okay, this is something that you can see, that you can perceive, instead of getting out of a questionnaire, if you prefer to work than to make love, or if you prefer to stay at home with kids or go travel. Now, from the shamanic aspects of my training, seeing energy, looking at people in an energetic way, what happens is this, the archetype just shows up, and it coincides with many other energetic aspects that can be read in other systems like traditional Chinese medicine or Zen Shiatsu. For example, Athena is more a chakra 7, she's born from the head of her father, and tends to be a very mental, planning, strategic mind, personality that relies a lot on thinking and analyzing information. That chakra 7, that is like the crown, also helps her to have some sort of authority, and it's not unusual that Athenas get to be on authority positions in groups or corporations. Now, the element from Chinese medicine that corresponds to Athena would be metal. And the meridians that are related to metal are lung and large intestine, and they have to do with structure. Structure in the sense that you have to have everything in order. Order is very important. Everything needs to be in its place, and if something's out of place, it shakes the whole building, because it doesn't have that much grounding. Although it's very strong, it depends on order, and order depends on everything being in the structure that was laid out by the mind. So metal also has to do with boundaries and has to do with distance. Athena has this capacity of taking a step back in order to see the whole picture and do it in a detached way, with not so much putting your heart into it, but more like a cool and collected view of the whole situation, and then able to intervene. Artemis is a very similar situation, and she was able to vision, with her vision, take a good look from afar and be very accurate about where she wants to put her arrow and get exactly to the point that she wants to go. And Artemis, energetically, in terms of chakras, is related to chakra number 3 and number 6. 3 because it has to do with action, and 6 because it has to do with vision. In order to put my arrow where I want, I have to first have a good look at where it needs to go. It's associated with meridians and the energy of the liver, gallbladder, and then it has to, again, with action, focus. They're very, very focused. They also have to do with struggle, with fight, with overcoming obstacles. The emotion that comes up when this is not possible, to reach the goal that she wants to get, is anger. And decision making is, it could be either a very strong point or a very weak point, depending of if Artemis is the full expression of the archetype, or is a wound. The wound is in Artemis. Hestia is related to first chakra, stay at home, stay inside. The third chakra in the sense of receiving instead of doing, and not so much acting, but staying and allowing herself to receive. And the fourth chakra of introspection and love, but in the sense of conscience. It's related to the fire element. Hestia is the home element, the little fire at the center of the home, the hearth. Has to do also with large intestine and small intestine meridians, the energy of these meridians, and qualities of withdrawal to inner life and introspection, which is similar to meditation. That's why Hestias nowadays are associated more to the nun, the woman that closes herself in instead of going out into the world. Demeter, it's related to the third chakra. It's about giving and receiving, and usually the imbalance is that Demeter will give too much and not receive enough, would not allow herself to receive, she would feed everybody and there would not be a plate at the table for her. So she's related in my system or my correlation to the traditional Chinese medicine elements, to the element of the earth, the stomach and the spleen meridians. Is related to pensiveness as well, overthinking, mulling, chewing over and over things, and as I said before, an imbalance between giving and receiving. Aphrodite, another of the archetypes which is not that much in vogue, except when you're in the movies or in a particular time in life, is associated to fire as well, the same as Hestia, and chakra fourth, the heart, and the second chakra, also sensations, feelings, sensuality, love and sensuality. Persephone, the daughter, the role of the daughter, is related to water, because she can really, water always looks for the deepest point in earth. You tend to go down as much as possible, and Persephone can really go underground. She's also the queen of the underworld, and is related to chakra 2, the second chakra, also very perceptive, very sensitive, and the fifth chakra, listening and using the expression, the voice, the words to manipulate or to change the reality that she won't do by force, as Artemis would do with her strength and power, or Athena with her strategy and planning. So the emotion of fear, the capacity to go deep into the subconscious, and this in Chinese medicine and Shiatsù, it affects the bladder and kidney meridians, which also rule the water in the body and the adrenal response to fear. And for last, Hera, the wife, is related to the element of wood in Chinese medicine. Has to do also with the planning, storing, detoxifying, and the emotion that Hera tends to express is anger when things don't go as planned. The chakra associated to Hera is the third chakra, in the sense of the domination. All the power is exerted by the force either of her position, her hierarchy, or the manipulation of the situation, so she can also be on top. The third chakra is involved in this correlation with the chakras, and the liver meridian is the energetic aspect that I recognize in Hera's. Now, as I said before, it's there are many ways to reach the archetype, but my advice to some of you that might be listening is to really sense what the archetype is before you try to think, what are the qualities from reasoning or from the stories that they may tell you, or the situation around their lives. So if there's one thing that I would say one more time, I would allow myself to just guess, intuitively allow myself to get that the intuitive information of what is the archetype of each person that you come across with. And thank you very much. This is about the time that we have allotted. Again, my name is Diego Sanchez, and I'll be happy to take questions whenever you hear this presentation. Much love to you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.